So, Jimmy Carter has officially passed away at 100 years old, sadly, as he is one of the more remarkable men to ever ascend to the presidency. He was very ahead of his time with his progressive values, of which we would like to continue to talk about even now. A lot of those, we could use a voice like his, being a vocal critic of the genocide in Gaza or a believer in the need for free healthcare. So, I thought, why not use him and some of these moments as the framing for our discussion today to pay a little tribute to the man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Carter.
A superpower not only should be the top country as far as military power is concerned, which we're going to continue to be, but I think the American superpower goal should be to be the champion of peace and to be the champion of human rights and to be the champion of the environment, and to be the most generous nation on earth. Those are the elements that I hope eventually the United States will set as goals. And we are the most warlike country on earth. We are a laggard in addressing the problem of global warming.
Carter is essentially what Trump markets himself to be, as someone who dedicated his entire presidency and then life to peace, keeping us out of conflict, not starting them, not having to end them, right? The difference is Trump expanded every conflict that he was handed, with Iran, with Afghanistan and Iraq. He tried in Venezuela and Yemen and Syria. I mean, it's really just a lie that quickly falls apart for Trump. For Carter, however, he didn't start or continue any conflicts under his regime. He was a stronger pusher of Palestinian rights in the Middle East than most people at that time, and a humanitarian first view of how he would view or enter into discussions with any country. For Carter, however, he actually didn't start or continue any conflicts under his regime. He was a strong pusher of Palestinian rights in the Middle East, called out Israel as an apartheid state. He had a humanitarian first view of which he would go into discussions with other countries, to which he continued even long after his presidency, and being a vocal critic of American imperialism. He did all this while still understanding America's place in the world, not saying, well, we'll just focus on ourselves like Trump does. It's needing to have our allies back and helping them also reach the level of sovereignty that we have, right? He signed the Panama Treaties, the Camp David Accords, restored ties with China, nuclear agreements with Russia, though admittedly no president is perfect. The Iran hostage crisis probably should have been handled a bit different, but all in all, he was very ahead of his time then, speaking foreign policy-wise, and even now represents the kind of voice we need, and that's partly why he went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize, being a big critic of Bush and his lies to get us into Iraq, going on and criticizing Obama and his aggressive drone strikes and escalating conflicts, doing it with Trump as well. I mean, it just shows how this was a true vision of his and not something he just tried to use politically as an attack for the other side like MAGA and most Republicans do.
The word apartheid is exactly accurate. This is an area that's occupied by two powers. They're now completely separated. The Palestinians can't even ride on the same roads that the Israelis have created or built in Palestinian territory. The Israelis never see a Palestinian except their Israeli soldiers. The Palestinians never see an Israeli except at a distance, except the Israeli soldiers. So within Palestinian territory, they're absolutely and totally separated, much worse than they were in South Africa, by the way. And the other thing is, the other definition of apartheid is one side dominates the other, and the Israelis completely dominate the life of the Palestinian people.
Why don't Americans know what you have seen?
Americans don't want to know.
This part was absolutely astonishing to hear from a former president, and it's something Carter has always been steadfast on. I mean, he wrote a book about Israel being an apartheid state and then wrote another very pro-Palestinian book like 4 years later. He's visited sites of Palestinian victims, took part in rallies, and this is something you just don't expect to hear come out of somebody who's the former president, with the grip that AIPAC has on politics now and the hesitancy in which politicians speak on this issue. And again, again, another thing he was ahead of his time on. Even back in 1978, he did the Camp David Accords. Now, while Israel might not have entered these as the most honest broker there in the most utmost good faith, actually trying to negotiate, Carter was still able to bring these parties together, and he did everything in his power to make something happen, and it did result in the West Bank and Gaza being able to form its own elected government, so baby steps. And he went on to go and speak against Reagan and his war hawk activities in the Middle East, including the Sabra and Shatila massacres of Palestinians and Lebanese civilians. He won a Nobel Peace Prize, like I said, for his critiques of Bush's dealings in the Middle East and lying to get us into Iraq. He also went hard on Obama and Trump, and he's someone who, as president, was able to witness this oppression and destruction that's being forced upon the Palestinians firsthand. And it's something that he knew he would never forget. So he dedicated his life to not allowing the world to forget either, of which might be the most noble thing about him. And it also gave us this completely metal image of him at a pro-Palestinian rally in the front lines, yelling at someone's face, essentially, at almost 90 years old.
Former President and Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter met Stacey Abrams on Main Street in his hometown of Plains as they toured the Mercer Medicine Clinic and talked rural health care. Abrams wants to expand Medicaid and pump money into rural hospitals and clinics. That way, she believes, people and jobs will come back to rural counties.
But more than providing access to physical health care, Medicaid expansion creates 56,000 jobs.
Yes, on top of all his other steadfast progressive beliefs, Jimmy Carter was also a strong supporter and champion of universal health care, supported Bernie Sanders and Medicare for All, and sponsored clinics and plans like Stacey Abrams in this clip to bring clinics to rural areas to cover the uninsured on a tax-funded basis, essentially expanding Medicare and Medicaid, Medicare for All light, right? As he called the fact that we don't guarantee healthcare to our civilians in the wealthiest country in the world one of the biggest failures of our country, as it truly is. Healthcare reform is also something he tried to push through in his presidency, but was ultimately blocked by Ted Kennedy as president. Carter was kind of strangleheld, especially domestically, by the Congress beneath him, not able to enact these progressive forward policies to the extent he probably would have liked. But the way that he went on after his presidency to champion them, fight for them, and to never allow human rights violations to go unnoticed is what I think makes him the legend he is, and what truly makes it so sad to say, rest in peace.